Overtime.
Welcome to episode 11 of Overtime, here as part of our Pacific Grandstand show on 531 PI. It's fantastic to have you here. 11 shows, Matty.
Yeah, man. How good.
Growing.
Yeah, growing. After last week's episode 10, it was awesome to get some attraction and get some praise and celebration from our followers. So big shout out to all the people online, as well as our friends and family who have been supporting the show, and also our amazing guest that we've had on. We had Elijah last week, and to chop it up about his career and a bit about the All Blacks and the Warriors, state of the Warriors as well. So there was a lot of good chat last week, but yeah, now we're episode 11 and we go again.
Talking of guests, we're very honoured this morning to have an icon of the radio and the speaking circuit, and an icon in our Pacific community,
Yes,
Ma'a
indeed.
Brian Sagala. Welcome to Overtime.
Mahalo soifua. Thank you, gentlemen. Whakawelahi mahaki. And I just want to put a disclaimer out there. I am here representing all the armchair critics, okay? So in terms of sporting prowess, maybe not so much, but this will work and talk about anything that you present today.
You have your clipboard on the couch?
No. It'll be on my gravestone when yeah. But thank you, guys. Really appreciate the invitation. Yeah.
We'll go back to the start. You grew up in Wellington.
Yes.
Earliest memories?
Earliest memories. Well, growing up in Porirua, Ascot Park, Porirua East, the metropolis of Wellington,
Nice.
being the metropolis of the universe, centre of the universe. My earliest memories growing up in Ascot, we're talking 70s, 80s, a lot of fun back in those days before social media, before all the stuff, just playing down at the park, tennis courts with the kids and that, and church, growing up in Efakasa in Waihemo, led then by Yoritana, and, oh my gosh, Lord Nise Tanielu, stalwarts of the Efakasa movement, going to school, Tairangi Kindergarten, Rangikura Primary School, Waitangiroa Intermediate, Aotea College, and just, it was a great time growing up in the 70s and the 80s. Music, family, not so much in the culture back in those days. We didn't have I don't think we had that revelation back in the 70s, 80s of just how important culture is. But now, through the lens of time, and especially since my time here at 531 and PMN, realising all the richness, diversity and the beauty that our Pasifika culture, our people bring to every sphere of society are. But earliest memories, just having lots of fun and getting into trouble, which if it was on social media, we're like, wow. Be cancelled already.
We're almost the same age. We grew up in a very similar time, although I grew up in Auckland. But during the 70s, especially growing up in Ponsonby, in central Auckland, it was a time when there was a real change and a real influx of Pacifica people coming to New Zealand and changing the landscape. And as you said, not a lot of culture back then, but it was changing. It was changing then. Looking back, do you see that happening? And what were your memories of that time when the Islanders were starting to come en masse?
Well, growing up in Porirua, I'm sure now, same as back then, we had one of, if not the largest populations, Pacific populations in Wellington. Wow. And so growing up, a lot of my friends were cookies. I had Samoan friends, Tokelau, because of course Tokelau is the world capital, Porirua, the world capital of Tokelau. And so I grew up around, all my friends, and of course with church and family and that. But when I talk about, that's pretty much all I knew. But then again, when you go to things like school and there, you did see, okay, we were in the minority in terms of numbers and that, but what we lacked in numbers we made up for in terms of our loudness and our pride and that. And even though I say not exposed much to the culture, I should actually retract from that, because of course growing up in a very strong and conservative Samoan family, when we go to church, e whakasa, everything's in Samoan at home, Samoan, but like many of our generation, when you walk out the door and you enter into the Pārangi world, it's that stuff was sort of left at the door. And many times growing up, when I'd ask about wanting to learn more about my whaasaa more and stuff like that, both mum and dad would say, will you get a job from it and stuff like that. So I think even mum and dad, like many of our parents coming to New Zealand, that okay, we need to be in the Pālangi space if we want to get ahead and to build a future for our families.
That's beautiful, man. And being from Wellington, I always find it pretty, as an Aucklander, because Auckland's pretty much the capital of the Pacific and the whole entire world. So when people come from from Wellington or outside of Auckland that are Pacific Islanders, I always find that crazy, man. I'm like, man, there's actually islanders outside of Auckland. It's a bit ignorant of me, bro. So
very
apologies.
ignorant.
Apologies for that.
It's very ignorant.
But for you, Brian, I know you being here and growing up in Wellington, you grew up during the glory days of rugby league when it was booming back in the 70s and 80s. And I know we spoke about this in the studio, but I really wanted to unpack that, bro, and what it was like for you growing up in the sporting realm for all those rugby league communities down in Wellington, which has, if I'm fair to say, that has dwindled over the years.
Most definitely, from what
would
I've
you
seen.
think?
Rugby league instilled so much in me, as it does any team sport. My very first team I played for was the Waitangiroa Vikings. I think now they're called Porirua Vikings, but back then it started... it was the Waitangiroa Vikings, played under wonderful Cook Island brother, and that was, maybe I was 12 or 13, and the only reason I went was because the training was at the park, which is literally next door to my house, Escott Park. So I went along and I was like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool. And so that was my first exposure to the team, to rugby league and to sports and stuff like that. And then from there went on to play for Paramatta City Phoenix and also the mighty St. George Dragons. And so we had success, back-to-back Wellington championships in 87, 88 with under 17 age grade at that time. So those were great days. And E Sautungi Atama, rest in peace, was our coach at Paramatta City. And then with St. George Dragons, we had the incredible Tamatua. So growing up and playing around guys, legends of the game back in Paramatta, guys like Tino Brown. Who else we had? Guys like Tom Malu, Shane Laulu, Joe Ariu and stuff like that. And even playing against future stars. I'm pretty sure Sid Eru for Upper Hutt. And then
Tigers.
we had, the Tigers. And then also Stephen Kearney. So back then, it was, I'm sure he was the captain of the, Kapiti Bears, actually. Kapiti Bears. And so playing, it was very strong competition from the age grades right up to prems, and you had teams literally all around Wellington. Like, talk about, the Tigers, you had Petone, you had Ranwick, you had Upper Hutt, you had Wainuiomata, you had out in, I think, Paramatta was where the Marlins were at the time in that, and so it was a wonderful time. But here's the thing, I'm so glad I didn't attain a higher level, because the highest level I reached in terms of playing was actually reserves, and that was for Mangere East. So Rub the Hawk, shout out.
Oh, yeah.
Rub the Hawk, bro.
Rub the Hawk, yeah.
But it was a wonderful time, but not at that time we weren't aware medically around things HIA and that as what we have available now. And so over my time playing, even though I didn't reach the representative level, I've actually been knocked unconscious maybe 3-4 times over those earlier years, and that. And one of those was actually a social game at college, where it was like the juniors. I don't know if they had it at schools when you grow up, like juniors versus the seniors. Used to be a thing back in those days, eh? Juniors playing the seniors.
That's asking for trouble, man.
Yeah, bro. And so, knocked unconscious like 3-4 times. We're total blackout, and I'd come to forget everything. And then slowly my memory would come back, and only years later realising, well, I can't actually remember much of my childhood.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
it's-
yeah.
So a lot of my close friends, ones that remind me of memories, especially those that I played with in the early days down in Pro Rule. But man, it was incredible. I loved it with a passion. We even had college competition, and what was funny is that you'd play for your school, but you'd be playing against, say, like it would be Altair would play like Pro Rule College, and you'd be playing against your own teammates from outside of school. So that was fun too. Yeah.
Wellington back then, from mine, as you said, some of the big teams and some of the big names that were playing down there. Wellington would get players from Taranaki. Of course, they got the Kevin and Howie Tamati from Taranaki.
Oh, yes.
They moved down to Wellington.
Yeah.
I remember one of the Woods from Rotorua, he went down and played in Wellington.
Wow.
There was an attraction. There was a competition to really compete and play hard and making some big names and made some big waves in the national competition.
In the Line Red Cup,
The Lion Red Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wainui Mata.
Man.
Ken Laban.
Yeah.
Shout out to them and the Lomaxes.
Oh, yeah.
The Umangas and all the families from over the hill.
That's right. Tana's old teammate, Whalongo.
Yeah. Tana
Junior
played-
Kiwi, yes.
That's it. Where do you think it started to go? When did you think the slide from where it was then in its heyday to where it is now? Struggling. I remember coming to Wellington, playing at Rugby League Park on the hill, seeing the Hurricanes use that as their training base now.
Oh, wow.
There's no home for rugby
Yeah.
league as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Well, a picture, say for 1988, under-17s, we played against Upper Hutt, the Tigers, and I think it was either out at Petone or Upper Hutt. I can't remember the ground, but this is for an under-17 grand final. It was packed.
Wow.
It was packed. When you ask about where the slide is, to be honest, bro, after I stopped playing, I didn't really follow the game much, but I do have a few friends that were in administrative positions, and when checking up, hey, how things are going, it's like when you can't even field a topside for games, that doesn't...
You're in trouble, eh?
Yeah, it doesn't speak well. When you can't field a topside for a game and win by default, it's like there would be... You'd never hear of that back in the days, and that I think part of the reason, just the growing attraction of other sports, basketball, football coming into play in that, and there's so many other opportunities. Also the physical nature. A lot of parents, they don't like their kids getting into contact sports just for the very reason that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What happened to me, and so that they don't want them to get into their sports, maybe touch or something like that. But from what I've conversations that I've had with my friends, and that just a decline across the board. The numbers at administrative level, and that the numbers dwindling, and just the interest is going down. And I think it would be good because of talk of another expansion team, potentially out of New Zealand at some stage, which would be good. But when it's only the Warriors, how many players are going to make the Warriors every year?
Yeah, that's true.
And so what you'll see a lot of parents are taking that leap of faith and taking kids over to Oz. We look at somebody like Bena or Dean Mariner with Lapi and Jolene taking that leap of faith, and now, of course, he's one of the hottest tickets in the NRL. So, yeah, like I said, with regards to the decline of the game, I think it's just at every level and across the board. And if you're not getting the juniors coming in, entering at the real early stages of the game, then of course it's you don't have anybody at the top side level to continue.
We've had some conversations, and you're a die-hard Eels fan.
We've got to be careful where this conversation goes now, guys. I could drop the mic and walk out. And you'll be, what are we going to say for the next 20 minutes? So I'm not warning you. I'm just saying, be wise.
All right,
be
all
wise
right.
in your questions. Yeah.
Wise, Willie, wise.
Yeah.
Well, I had a conversation with my son driving in this morning, saying I'm speaking to a gentleman who's a die-hard Eels fan.
Yes.
And my son's 21, but he loves the history of the games.
Yeah.
All right, okay. is he a Eric Grothe Senior fan
Yes.
or Eric Grothe Junior fan?
Well-
I said, I think he's Eric Grothe Senior, but I'll find out.
There's only one guru.
Oh, wow.
There's only one
this-
guru.
That leads me to my question.
Yes.
Where did it all begin, being a para fan, and how did
Yeah.
that come about?
Simple. They were the top side when I first started playing and gained interest. And then, of course, with the premierships, 81, 82, 83, and then 86, and they just missed out on the, 85, I think, against the Bulldogs. That's where my interest started with para. And so I've always followed them. But here's the thing, 39 years later, so I was 15 when they last won a premiership, 1986.
Jeez.
I'm going to look at the camera. I am now 53. I have 7 children, 10 grandchildren, and we still haven't won a premiership. I actually went along to the grand final in 2022.
Oh, wow, you did.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I did a bit of footage on 531 and stuff like that. I went to the Peter Wynn shop, had a talk with Peter Wynn, the great
Awesome.
Peter Wynn. You know, it was good. Went around the club rooms and all that. Went to the game. And to me, it was such a bitter disappointment. We outnumbered the Penrith fans. I could tell about
Enormously.
maybe 3-1. 3-1. But to me, why would you leave the worst game of your season for the final game
Yeah, man.
of the year?
Oh, well. I think
I
they
just-
beat them twice that year as well.
Yeah.
They beat them every single time in
Well,
the season. And
Look at the game. They've always been a sort of a needle in Penrith's side.
Yep.
I think a lot of it is mental too, because we're talking about the 80s when Penrith were known as the chocolate soldiers.
That's it, yeah.
They always melt under pressure.
Oh, wow.
Now it's the other way around, you know. We're leading. They score 3 tries in 3 minutes. So they literally snatched the... Yeah, there was an obstruction. Clearly, Liam Martin at the end there.
Oh, wow,
We
okay,
all know.
right.
You can't tell me different. But the thing is like, well, had you protected the lead with only, what? Less than 10
to go.
10 minutes to go. Then
14 up.
for goodness sake. But that's where my passion, and it never waned over the years.
Amazing.
I've just stayed the course. You can ask people, my 2 best friends, Shane and Nick, you can ask people that know me from Pororua, and they'll tell you that know me, they go, yeah, bro, he's been a para fan for years. There's a picture of me with one of my children being at their birth. I should have brought it because I was like, oh, and I'm smiling, and my one of the kids is in the thing, and I'm wearing a para jersey.
The commitment.
So, yeah. So, got to keep the faith, eh?
Favourite player?
Sterlo,
Sterlo.
yeah. I don't know. I'm kidding.
You could take,
I love
to be
Peter.
fair, you could
Yeah.
take your pick in that side. Mick Cronin was my favourite.
Bro, Guru, the Crow. I mean, golly, the Zip Ella, legend.
Price.
Oh yeah, bro, perpetual motion. These guys, they set the standard. It's funny. I've seen a few times on some of the posts. Like there was a photo of Bear, Crow, who else? Guru, and I think maybe Sterlo as well. And a lot of the comments, if these guys were playing today, because they set that standard. And then you have the likes of John Money there, mastermind coach, bro, guiding, leading, directing. It was like all in sync. They say premiership winning teams, it's not just on the field, but back of house.
Yep.
Everything is working like clockwork, and that no issues. And when the two are working in sync, you look at Penrith. Oh, you were. Look at the work that Phil Gould did behind the scenes, building up the
100%.
junior development, and now it's reaping rewards. A lot of these guys have been playing since age grade days. And even though you get the likes of Matt Burton, Kikau, Crichton leaving in that, they're still winning.
Yeah.
They're still
Production line keeps going.
It is literally a production line. It's like all the great teams. You look at the Crusaders when they went on their run. Teams like Pats. Also, when you look at the Lakers of the 80s and that. It's like, man, winning it's their culture. It's a culture, and regardless of who leaves and who comes into the system, it's embedded in their DNA from the time they step through the doors.
Yeah, you can't understate, as you said, the job that John Money and Jack Gibson did
Oh, of course, Jack Gibson. Yes.
to establish that winning culture.
Yeah.
And then John Money to keep it going.
Yeah.
You go from Wellington, you move to Auckland.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, my parents separated in '88, and so Mum and Dad thought that it would be best that all of us boys, I'm the eldest of 4 boys, and so my brothers, Yese, Bolo and Suesi, the youngest, and so Mum and Dad decided, okay, it would be best that we all stick with one, and so we came with Dad. The reason Dad moved up to Auckland was because he had a number of siblings here in Auckland, so he was the only one in Porirua in Wellington at the time, and so we'd have a lot of our uncles and aunties and cousins come and visit over the years. But when that happened, they thought, Dad decided, I want to be close to my family, and that's the reason why we moved up to Auckland.
And when you came up to Auckland, I know we spoke about it before, but and you mentioned about the Mangere East Hawks, and you come up to Auckland, and it's a whole different world. You're amongst all the Pasifika people and some of your friends and family. But how did you transition into getting back into sport and getting back into rugby league up here? I know you spoke highly of your brothers who were part of some championship winning squads as well for the Mangere East Hawks. So talk us a little bit about that.
When I started my first job, social welfare, Department of Social Welfare, as it was known back in those days, and one of the guys that I met, a dear friend by the name of Junior Va'a, a younger brother of the late Alan Va'a, done amazing work in Otara, rest in love, brother. And so through him, I connected with other guys that happened to play for Mangere East. And so I wasn't doing anything at the time, and I thought, why not? I hadn't played for a few years. And so I went along, and then I was blessed to play for Roy Chan. Yeah, so coach was a very important figure for me, as with all my other coaches, because a lot of the coaches, they become like your surrogate dads, as we all know, playing team sports, that it's about the game, but life lessons as well. And so a lot of the things I learned from all my coaches, including the late Roy Chan, hats off to you, Coach, passing on a lot of their lived experience and wisdom garnered over years, but also just getting into that daily discipline of being part of a team, working towards being able to play in the final game on the last day of the season. We never reached those heights, but I got to play alongside some amazing guys like Jason Adama, Brian Atatoa, who out Lionel Pereira. We had my buddy Brian March as well. There were a lot of great guys that played with and who have since become lifelong friends. There was a group of us that got to travel up to Coach's funeral a few years back, and it was a great way for us to honour him, but also representing all the players that he had an impact on their lives.
Moving up to Auckland, what was the biggest difference for you from Wellington?
I'll be straight up. Was the size and the weather. But here's the funniest thing. And this is not disparaging on either of these beloved cities. When I first drove through Atara, I thought I knew my way around.
Oh, wow.
That's how much it reminded me of the creek.
Wow.
Yeah, I honestly thought, this is just like Kennet's Creek. So I thought,
hang on, I'm in Auckland.
But in saying that, maybe the geography, the topography, the landscape of the houses and that, but it's the culture of the places that really resonated in that. And just the sheer number of islanders here. I know growing up in Porirua, I was islanders, but when you go like, oh man, there's a lot of islanders
they're
over
everywhere,
here.
man.
And another thing was the weather. So my first winter here, I remember I would be walking around in a T-shirt on that and family, bro, you're crazy. And I was like, it feels okay. The first time I went back home, I was saying to myself the whole time, it wasn't this cold growing up, bro. Because I was in one of those old army jackets, the one that used to have the white sleeve. And then I had my tracks on, my thermals, and I was sleeping under blankets, and I was still cold. And I was going, I can't believe it. So that was the biggest thing, but also having more of my dad's family. So down in Wellington, my mum's family, like the Aulus, Elisaras, that I spent most of my upbringing around, but then coming up and spending more time on dad's side and that. So it was good.
You talk about social welfare, and you're in radio now. How did you transition and come across broadcasting?
It's funny because this is going back about 20-something years. My first radio gig was back, maybe in the 90s, under 1593 AM frequency, which now is Radio Samoa, but back then it was Reo Tomotu. So I used to host a youth show in the afternoons, or in the evenings, myself, Albert Wipani, Francis Stowers and Brian Marsh, and we were called the Three Amigos, even though there was four of us. But there was a lot of fun, and that was my first exposure to broadcasting in there. And it's funny, the guy that was before us was Feleti, Feleti Pua, one of the founding members of Nesian Mystics. There was his youth show, and it was like, we're going back, going back years. Oh, and of course his dad was involved, and we had a lot of great people there. And then the next one was when I was on working for Radio Samoa. So I used to do a show called the Crazy Kokonati in the afternoons. The irony being that I'm not well versed in my language, and I was doing the afternoons and that, and I began pulling a post. How come you're not speaking Samoan? But give it a try, give it a try. And it's a funny story. I've shared it before, and my cousin will go, But I came in one day and my cousin, she goes, Ma, we're going to have to let you go. And I went, what? Wow. And she goes, well, you're not really turning up at the moment. And I went, yeah, that's right. Because I've been doing a lot of MC gigs on the weekend. And so I never held anything against her. Ane Bonifacio. So I love my cuz. But no, it was, I knew it was coming, to be honest. And I was like, okay. But those were two, and before I started here at PMN, which is going on to my 9th year now. So I was at a job. I used to work for an insurance company in Australia. They were an Australian insurance company, Yui, and this was 2014. I hated it. I literally hated the job, and that's nothing against Yui. It was just my experience. Yep. But what I can say, and this is something that I hope anyone can take away, I never missed a single day. I was never late in every area. I started in sales and finished in claims. I gave 100% of my time, and that, I think integrity plays a big part. And I think through my sports, if I'm looking at my sports journey, integrity is a big part. We've got to be there for each other when we're on the field. And when you can't give anymore, but you see the guy on your, on your right and on your left, like they're ready to go again. Like, well, bro, put on your big boy pants. So there was, and during that time, I'd actually be praying a lot at Ellerslie train station, and I'd literally be crying and calling out and praying, Father, if there's, please help me, put me in a place where you can utilise these gifts and talents that you bless me. I don't know what it is. And so a year to the date that I started there, I started here at PMN, 531 PI, and 9 years in, still here.
You've become, since then, for me and for many, you've become a voice for our communities, a proud voice that continues to champion on our people. And through one of those things, you mentioned it a bit before about a commitment and putting in your 100%, and you do that with your emceeing gigs. And I remember I was in high school, and you were emceeing one of these conferences that I was at for young Pacifica leaders, and despite you being the MC, you really took hold of that stage, and you really pushed on the message to us young people at the time that the world is our oyster, that our Pacific culture is something that we should keep to the forefront. And I remember because you got emotional as well when you say it, and I love that about you, bro. And you bring that emotion every time you do that emceeing. And what I'm leading to is last year at the launch of the Pacifica Rugby strategy for New Zealand Rugby, you were the MC of that event. And again, you showed up and you showed out. You spoke in 10 different languages in your introduction. And you're interviewing some of these high-profile Pacifica legends in rugby, and you yourself were emotional when you were introducing Ma'a Brian as well at the strategy event. How are those moments for you when you get to give back in those fashions when you're an MC?
It's always the greatest honour and the greatest privilege whenever someone asks me to lead and to host an event, and it's never anything that I ever take lightly, whether it's a community event where maybe 10 people turning up to events at Eden Park, and there's hundreds of some of the high profile Pasifika community. For me, it's always been about service, which of course is modelled by our parents, and that's the attitude that I've always taken in. I always take the attitude of serving. I'm there to do a job, but I always look at it as serving in who I am and what I've been blessed with in my giftings, and to be my authentic self. I always, when people ask me, what's the number one piece of advice being an MC? Be yourself. And everybody will know if you're trying to be somebody that you're not, and it doesn't sit well with the audience. But if people, they may not like your style, it may not resonate with them in that, but they know, well, at least he's being himself. And so that's what I always like to be, is myself. But then a lot of it, just like with work, it's the duck analogy. The duck on the surface, you look above the waterline, the duck is calm, always calm. But underneath, the legs. So many times people will see if I'm doing a giggle there, but when I'm off stage and somebody's talking, they're, okay, what's my notes? What's next? Okay, then what's coming up? Okay, somebody's just come and whispered in my ear. Okay, we've got to change. We're going with this person now. Da 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 da. And you always got to be hold things lightly and just be able to pivot and adapt in the moment. And that's the thing. That's the thing too. You got to be adaptable. There's in over 30 years of emceeing, there's never been, maybe one or two, that have gone exactly to the run sheet, to the program. But what I've learnt over the years is always expect the unexpected. Always expect the unexpected. But before every event and that, I'm just like everybody else. I get nervous and stuff like that. But I always pray. It's always pray, commit things in prayer. Even when I've worked on a program, committed in prayer, and then go and then just walk out in faith. Step out in faith. And then sometimes if I'm really, really nervous, I don't know. It must be the pro real boy that comes out of me. Like, oh well, backs against the wall. Put on your big boy pants. Yeah. Well, okay, let's go.
Throughout your time as a broadcaster, you've interviewed a lot of sportsmen and women. Has there been anyone that stood out to you?
Oh, man. I think it would have to be, because you've mentioned Tui Whaasasina, Sir Brian Williams, the first time I interviewed him. It really means a lot to me because I think about my dad. I was named after Sir Brian. So I was born in 1970 in November, and I think just a few months earlier, he had terrorised South Africa, being the first All Black, or for a while, or first Pasifika superstar rugby player that actually played on South African soil. And I've watched those highlights, and I'm just amazed at the man. And so, for me, because of the connection and because of my dad naming me after Tui Whaasasina, Sir Brian, he's the one that, I feel, oh man, that's awesome. But then again, if sports entertainment, I know you guys are going to freak out if you know Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man. He was in New Zealand.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I know. Like, if you know your WWF. Yeah.
Was Virgil with him?
No, he wasn't. So here's the freaky story about Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man. He was in New Zealand to speak at a men's conference, which I was also emceeing. He had given his life to Jesus a few years back. He did a full 180. He was hardcore women, drugs and everything. But now, at the time that I interviewed him, I think this is going back like 8-9 years, turned his life around and was going around the world speaking. And so it was like, oh, yeah. And somebody, I don't know how it came about, maybe a connection with the organizer there. Hey, could Ted, yeah, but I don't think we didn't have the cameras in there going, because, you interviewed you interviewed $1 Million Man, But yeah,
you just got a million times cooler for me. But I love WWE, and that's
bro.
awesome.
Man, when you go back to WWF as we know back in those days, golly, you look at Hulk Hogan, you look at the Warrior, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Axel Jim Duggan, what is it? Who are our boys from New Zealand? The
Bushwhackers.
Yeah.
Richard Luke.
And you know what? This is another great thing about the 80s growing up, because we didn't have video where you can play back on demand. We had the beautiful VHS.
Wow.
So like a lot of our guys set up the mattress in the sitting room and the brother.
2 weeks after.
Yeah.
Some great times.
Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh yeah. Me and Elizabeth.
I can see it now.
Yeah. You're aware.
Move along. At the moment, the All Blacks are playing. Had a tough time of it on the weekend. Your thoughts on where the All Blacks are at the moment and how they try and get a win on Saturday night?
Speaking from my many years of experience playing 3 games for the first 15 of Aotea College, I think it's actually a good thing. Might be going against the grain here, but I believe it's a good thing. It's early days in Razor's tenure. And so with any transition period, there's going to be some ups and downs and maybe a bit of experimentation, but better now than 2027 in the finals when we're leading up to World Cup. So I think it's a good thing, but just needing to make some concrete decisions around his selections and that, but full faith. I mean, you look at Foz, Ian Foster and the rough time he had of it, but golly, with all that stuff that was going on during his tenure, they still made the World Cup final, Rugby World Cup final, and they went within a whisker. We won that game, hands down.
For sure.
We won that game, hands down. You can't tell me any different. And to bring a try back when it was more than 3 phases, that's just redonkulous. And that's the thing for rugby as well as rugby league in terms of how much power you give to the bunker or to match officials. You've got to make sure it's a right balance, because if you're leading, which I think was an example during the Rugby World Cup, because you had so much of the guys in the bunker,
TMOs.
Yeah, TMOs, that to me actually affects the on-field performance of the ref. Because if the ref is lacking a bit of confidence in that, then I like the old days without the bunker and that. At least refs will just live and die on their shield. I was like, made a decision. I thought it was the best call at the time, and that's it. I rather that than it's like dissecting a try for like 5-10 minutes and then and it ruins the momentum of the game for me, especially like if a team's on hard on attack. And yet, okay, we're gonna go back for this forward pass or whatever infraction. It's like, so a lot of things to consider.
Yeah, and I see the game moves on past it. And
Yeah,
stay in the present of that moment. Talking about this being possibly a godsend and a positive for the All Blacks. Were we expecting too much too soon from Razor and the success that he had from the Crusaders, or are we right to expect the All Blacks to be dominant and win every game?
Yeah, exactly the letter. It's who we are as New Zealanders. We pride ourselves on our team being the best in the world. I think we still have a winning percentage across the history of any sports, the highest winning percentage of any team in the world in the history of sports. That's incredible. And this is from a country of maybe 5 million people. So there is the standard. And I don't think it's unfair if you look at the caliber of Razor, even himself. Public are saying one thing, but I'm sure he would be more down on himself and the coaching team coming together like, man, what can we do? But what I like and what I see about Razor Robertson, he's a great thinker of the game and the learnings. This will be the biggest positives. Okay, what did we learn? What did we take out of that? What can we implement into the next test and take our game to another level? But no, it's what we expect as Kiwis. When you look at a game which is religious fervour, that's a good description of the way we support our teams, and it can be to our detriment. There's a stat I read a number of years ago, don't quote me, and paraphrasing, like when it comes to World Cups and if New Zealand lose, the number of domestic incidents rises. Now, that's a different conversation altogether in terms of, that's a bit too much. But the general psyche of All Black supporters, they have to win every single time. Yeah. There's nothing else.
Yeah, and it's deep in our culture as
it's
New
our
Zealanders,
identity,
and
I
was speaking about it with Will on Pacific Mornings and he mentioned that the All Blacks coaches often in New Zealand society it's sort of like the Prime Minister of the country too.
Yes,
and that goes the same for Andrew Webster and the Warriors as well, because he's anyone who steps into those head coach positions will face scrutiny on all levels, whether they do good or they make the right selections or they don't make the right selections. All eyes on the country are on these two men throughout the seasons, and I find it quite funny that a lot of people have come out and started to attack Razor and question his decisions and his choices around who he's put on the field, his sub rotations, and who he's benched as well. But last year, man, they were all saying we need Razor. Get rid of Foster. We're ready for a new chapter, and now this new chapter's coming in. Of course, there's a bit of teething issues with the All Blacks and some effort areas that they missed against Argentina. But yeah, it's really something that All Blacks fans and I guess us as Kiwis, as New Zealanders, need to take it a bit more lighter, I think. Willie?
Yeah, no, we're all armchair coaches, aren't we?
yeah, we are.
Rugby league
no,
coaches?
you're a real coach.
No. Me and you, bro.
You can be arm, I'll be chair.
Yeah.
No, we all have
NRL.
an opinion. We all have an opinion.
Yeah.
And that's the pressure that you were
Exactly.
talking about. That's where we put our All Blacks. And even as a Kiwi who lived abroad for a long time, probably my passion and my identity as an All Black fan grew because that became part of my attachment to being here.
Connection.
That was my connection, and seeing the All Blacks do well made me feel prouder.
Come on.
And the disappointment was the same.
Yeah.
Going the other way. We'll go back to rugby league just for a little bit here. We spoke about the state of the game in Wellington. Do you have any thoughts on the state of the game, especially at the grassroots level where we both started out and where our impressions and life and our groundings and lessons of life began? Do you have any thoughts on where the state of the game is at that level at the moment?
Again, I can't speak with any authority because my last game, man, we're talking about the mid 2000s, if that. So only from passing conversations, I know just through connections with Phil and Tash, Tasmania, the amazing things that they're doing with Mangere East and Niue Rugby League, as you would know, Matt. But I think it's a lot of contributing factors that are similar to what we touched on earlier with regards to Wellington and also in Auckland, just a waning interest, waning numbers, maybe at the administrative level, and then of course the big one is the almighty dollar. When we're looking at funding, and you see guys coming through the ranks now, they see NRL players contracts of hundreds of thousands. Oh well, hey, I want to, come on, bump it up to at least 1,000 a game, guys. Come on. Sort of thing. Yeah. So a lot of those things coming into play.
Do you think some of that would have changed in our time for some of the guys that we grew up with? The attraction of the dollar, the attraction of the opportunity to make a living. It was a distant dream. And, and it's still a distant dream for some today, but it wasn't as much of a dream to become a reality back then.
Oh, no.
Now, we didn't really know many people.
Sam Stewart.
You're a Paramatta fan.
Yeah.
We had to go and get the videos from the video shop every single week to get the roundup.
Yeah.
It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the radio. It wasn't in our faces as much. But if the guys that we grew up with had the opportunity that the young ones are afforded today, do you think there would have been a lot more go through?
I think so. The Rugby League, this word's used quite a few, very tribal. So even though we didn't have back in the 80s, but if you're in the league community, you're sort of in the know. If we have our own sort of wireless, where you're finding out about players, and when you hear about guys like Sam Stewart, I think was the Knights back in the day. Who was I think Tony Kemp, of course, Daryl Williams. When you see these guys, and you think, oh my gosh, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like. It'll be impossible to have someone playing for the Kiwis that's playing like local comp, and that is just in terms of the advancement of the games, the game over in Australia, of course, and then with broadcasting and bringing the game to the world, where I can press a button, I can watch NRL, I can watch Super League, I can watch the NFL, NBA, just like that, switch between. Whereas back then it was like, okay, have I got $4 to go and rent? Bro, have you got $1? Oh, yeah, okay, we'll go get the game in there.
Make sure you rewind it when you take it back.
And don't keep it on pause too long. Because then you got to find the sellotape.
Man.
He's wondering what we're laughing at.
You might be wondering why I'm a bit quiet here, guys. It's
80s
because
problems,
I was born in the 2000s. 20 years later after the time
gosh.
these guys are talking about. But
that's
cool.
You don't know what you missed.
Yeah, bro. Don't know. Yeah. Hey.
Well, that brings us to an end of our chat here. Ma'a, it's been so awesome to have you on the chair with us and be in the studio and join us for overtime and share your insights and your story. And it's awesome to see how rugby league has shaped you and molded you into the man you are today, but also your community, your culture, your religion and your faith, and how much of a beautiful man you are. Thank you from us for what you offer us every single day here at PMN, and some of the lessons that you've learned and pass on and continue to do so, but for sharing all that wealth of knowledge with us. As I said, you're an icon. You're an icon in our eyes and to all the listeners and the viewers of Overtime. So thank you very much for joining us here.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And if I can just leave with one word of encouragement to all our young Pasifika, especially tuning in, don't ever live down to the stereotypes perpetuated by our media. I'm going to leave with one story too, because of the thousands, but this is the latest one. Interviewed a guy by the name of Ken, Drink the Milgie.
Oh, yeah.
Drink the Milgie. And a group of gentlemen from South Auckland, Otara, and recently they have secured, so Drink the Milgie is a health drink. So had a talanoa with this amazing young man, and they had recently secured a contract to supply 22 countdowns or Woolworths around Aotearoa. This is just their starting deal, looking at about 4,000 units per week to supply. And that's just their starting deal, just over a year in operation. And this was a cold call where he went in and he shared his vision for the company. And Foodstuffs went, yeah, we want in. And so that's just one of the thousands of examples for our young people to know that there is so much more out there for you to go out and to change the world and to fulfill the purpose which God has put you on this earth for. Thank you, brothers.
Anything is possible.
Come on.
Thank you for joining us here at Overtime for another week. We look forward to joining you and being with you and presenting another episode 12 next week. Have a great week. God bless.